2016 Traffic, Bicycle, and Pedestrian Commission meeting. Go to item 1, approval of the agenda. I just noticed, is Carl or somebody from PD coming, Dave? Or?
No.
No? Okay.
It's a excused absence. He's
Okay,
busy
that's
with
fine.
the event we mentioned
The
earlier.
event, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Okay,
move
so
approval of 1 and 2
all right.
at Mass.
We want to,
Second that, but boy, it's a little crazy, but
yeah, motion made and seconded for 1 and 2.
yep, it
Okay.
was.
All in favor, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. 3 and 4, do you want to postpone then, Dave? So,
Actually, I had talked
do you have the
Carl,
information?
and he's allowing me to speak
Okay.
on his behalf because it's basically the same report that we had from second quarter. There are no crashes to report that the accident reconstruction team was called out for. So, very simple.
Good deal there. Nice and easy. So,
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 4, report by the police department of the proposed 2016-2017 school crossing guard locations.
We do have Crossing Guard Administrator Ken Brodhagen here, if maybe you wanted to go ahead and start us off.
Sure. If you get the corners, copies of the corners this year?
They were not emailed out, but I do have them here.
Okay. The corners are basically the same as last year. We have 42 regular crossing guards out every day covering 44 corners in the city by the schools. There's 22 corners east and 20 west. There was a little bit of adjustment on a couple of the corners. I found that crossing guards are getting out there a little bit early, 20 minutes, 15 minutes before the children are even showing up. And so I made some adjustments on some of the corners like Oneida and Shawano. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Will
I don't
there-
have any.
Will there be
Go
a
ahead.
copy of the corners in the minutes?
He's kind of-
If you'd like them to be part of the minutes, I can certainly put them in.
I'd like them to be. Thanks.
Sure, and really what it is going to be a copy of what you see right here. And
That's fine.
just summarizes the intersections, which school they're pertinent to, then the hours dedicated to them. And there's a west side, so you got the 22 that'll be listed here. And then the second sheet here is east side.
Okay.
So
Thank
I
you.
feel like the minutes reflect that, we certainly can place them in.
Okay, thanks.
A question, I guess we have one, just the Franklin area, that, we've had that in the past come up. Is that pretty much?
How that was taken care of was, there was a request by Franklin Middle School, and it was basically over at Lori Lane and Oneida Street, where the Public Works building was. And what I did was, there was some extra time in the crossing guard that was at 12th and Mason Street, which is a very short distance away. So 12th and Mason is covered in the morning for the elementary school students, and then about 5 or 10 minutes before Franklin lets out, that crossing guard covers for a half an hour at Lori Lane and Oneida Street, and crosses anywhere from 50 to 80 middle school students. And then once they're crossed, that crossing guard heads back over to 12th and Mason. And that corner was originally about 2.2 hours, and that just added 0.5 hours and stayed within the 3 hours pay that the crossing guard receives each day. So that problem was taken care of
Sounds like
approximately
we'll
2
take
years
care of them.
ago.
Franklin's happy and.
Yes, I believe they are.
Okay.
Yeah, and the neighborhood association
Okay. Good.
welcome that also.
Good deal, nice job on that
Right.
one. That was an issue the past couple of years, or had been, so. That's
Good.
the only question I have, unless anybody else on that.
Anybody else?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay.
Move to receive and place on file?
Motion been made,
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 5, consideration with possible action on the request by Alderman Slotnick to discuss the access for bicyclists and pedestrians along the Packland Drive right-of-way from Mason Street north to the city borders with the village of Howard.
Like I said, I'd like to start this off. We do have Alderman Sladek in the gallery here, and I think he could probably better explain the need for the request.
Hello, Commissioners. How are you
Good to
today?
have you back, Tom.
I wanted to talk about that stretch of Packerland. Dave's got it up on the screen there. On the south, it's intersected by Mason Street, and on the north, it basically runs to the village of Howard. And that is an incredibly congested and busy stretch of road. And I have had a number of contacts from constituents, one of whom is here tonight, would be willing to share his perspective as well. But I have constituents that live south of Mason Street, you know, in the areas around Southwest High and so forth, that would like to be able to either travel by bicycle or by foot northward. But once you get north of Mason Street, there's really no pedestrian or bicycle access that's suitable on that stretch of Packerland. And then I have people that live in the areas west of Packerland that would like to be able to ride bicycle or walk to areas like the Walmart and Sam's Club area down on Mason Street, and find their way south. So we've got a principal north-south corridor there that is really not at all suitable for pedestrian and bicycle travel. And I know that this commission has, over the last couple of years, heard more and more interest from the citizens across the city for access for these sort of modes of transportation. So my request would be that you study, you know, the Packerland right-of-way and determine what would be the most appropriate way to provide that sort of access to the people. Let me just add a couple more things. There's been some changes, obviously, with the Highway 29 project at the far north end now of what's on the screen. You know, they redid all of Highway 29 and they put in those roundabouts. The roundabouts were built with pedestrian access and you know, the necessary walkways and so forth. And Highway RK was put in that goes over to Pamperin Park. So if we could get access where people could go along the Packerland right-of-way and get to RK, they could walk or bicycle to Pamperin Park, that would be a very desirable thing. It would enable the city residents to take greater advantage of that park. Similarly, the Green Bay Botanical Garden is on Larson Road, just a very short ways off of Packerland, and that would be another facility that I think people would like to be able to get to using either foot or bicycle transportation. So that's really what I would like the commission to take a look at. I don't know what the right answer is. I know we've tried some multi-use trails now, and we're going to do that on Webster Street North. That might be a solution. Sidewalks might be appropriate. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know there's people that would like to use those alternate modes of transportation through that corridor. Any questions for me?
Was Mark, he had mentioned, you kind of covered what he wanted to say, because he was...
Mark and I have talked
Alderman
about
Stoyer,
this.
sorry.
He supports everything I just said. He said he may stop back.
And there he is.
Wow,
There
you're
he
timing.
is.
Right on time.
He was waiting for the cue to
I was
come.
gonna say, did you guys stage this? Or
Well, it was, we had a wheel and deal upstairs, so. Anyway,
See
go ahead.
someone out there going, go.
So what, do I need to say something?
If you'd like to say something.
Alderman Slotnick had just kind of mentioned his take on it and what he would like to get accomplished out there, so, and I was just referring to you had mentioned if you were...
Well, I'm very
Come
interested,
back
even
to-
though it's not my district. I'm friends with Mike, who lives in that district, and Tom and I have, I take Packerland quite a bit for the post office and different things. I take Larson Road many times. And just the whole fact that we're really looking at better means of not only traffic, you know, with cars, but with pedestrians and bikes. You know, I think this is, you know, especially with the amount of traffic over there, and there's dozens of opportunities for harm, if you will. And I've seen people on the streets with wheelchairs as well, and it's just, we need to dress it up, if you will, or at least try to get it as safe as possible. And granted, we have the Village of Howard that we're dealing with as well, and I don't know what kind of relationship we have with them, but I think it's important that, you know, everybody looks at this corridor.
And the county actually owns the roads. We got Howard and the county and the city involved here. That's why I think stepping back and looking at the whole situation and maybe deciding what would be the optimum solution, and perhaps talking to those other entities about a role they could play would make sense.
So I can see where we'd have to do a study, and I'm thinking about on University Avenue, recently they are putting a trail in. Are you guys aware of that at all? So it would be a bicycle trail, or it's not a sidewalk. It would serve the purpose of a sidewalk, but the residents then aren't getting charged for it. There was, do anybody here know about that?
It's a multi-use path. It's
A
identical to
multi-use
what-
path. But there was a grant or something, right?
What's that?
Wasn't there money available for that? Or the reason that it was that and not sidewalks?
Yeah, sidewalks are assessed, as many of you know,
Right.
by the city. So the abutting property owner does pay for the installation and the maintenance of the sidewalk. Multi-use path is different because it's multimodal, it's wider, and the maintenance is much more significant. So, yeah, it's definitely handled different at the city. That's been the installation cost and the maintenance.
So it would seem, I would like that to be part of the study, looking at a trail like that. Would seem to make some sense.
Go ahead, Earl.
Okay, thank you, Chair. You know, in Howard, they have along Cardinal Lane, they've got that path, something like that. And I don't know if you discussed that at all, but I'm thinking that it's not a sidewalk,
It's right here.
but it would be a,
Yeah.
pardon? You did-
Yeah, I'm
you
just
did?
bringing it up on the display, Mark.
Right, and I'm
Multi-use
just
path,
saying
yeah.
that, you know, one of the goals that I have, at least in my district, is to connect with that trail and out to the mountain base. So as we're looking at connectivity in the city, you know, with other communities, you know, I think this would be, that'd be another route to go. And we might, you know, somehow hook that in with Packerland, possibly as well, I don't know. But that would be a nice alternative as well.
Is there any, I know they're doing some kind of temporary stuff on Packland right now, but is there any, in the long range for Packland, have any type of major road work done there, Dave, or?
Well, given the
You know?
nature of the work that's going on right now by the county, they're doing concrete repair, you know, panel repair, joint repair. And then at the intersection of Larson, that's all gonna be an asphaltic overlay, milling a couple of inches of asphalt and putting it back. So given the nature of that type of repair, that's usually more of a maintenance type
Mhm.
project where you typically try to get at least another 10, 15 years out of something like that. So I would presume that they don't have any goals, or, you know, anything within the next 10 to 15 years, I would presume nothing. But then again, you know, the county would have to speak on their behalf
Yeah,
on that.
no, that seems, that's the area where you're kind of talking about, is from like from Mason to down to the roundabouts down on 29. The area which needs most of the access, because there's no access there right now. I mean, you see
Mhm.
people walking the highways from time to time there, and I drive it every day, so I see it and know what you guys are talking about, so.
The one question I'd have, Dave, for you is just process, being that that's a county highway in jurisdiction. If the city wanted to put a trail in, does the county have to take the lead, or can the city do that on county right away?
It's an interesting question. I don't know if I fully have the answer for you, because the only experience that I have is actually on a city street. So it's my presumption that they may be interested, but maybe they can't fund it, or maybe they don't support it. But, you know, similar to sidewalks, I would say, if you want to install them, go ahead. And they would probably permit the use. So I guess that would really be up in the air at this point in time. We'd have to, obviously, if there's any sort of work that's being done within that right of way, we would have to get their authorization to do so. So whether it be a multi-use path or even with sidewalks, they need to know that we're going to have them more in there.
Could you bring up the intersection of Mason and Packerland? just there for crossing Mason Street, just looking at the channel, I'm not saying you can't do it, but things to look at. If you're looking at extending sidewalk across Mason Street, do you have enough room for refuge? Otherwise, your signal timing's gonna get all screwed up. It's
Well,
a challenge, a
right.
design challenge, but just
Right.
something.
Well, just to summarize here, I mean, the sidewalk terminates at the south frontage road, and there is actually a crossing here, and this sidewalk access to this bus stop is relatively new in the last year or two. But you are correct in that there are no pedestrian crossing marked or constructed to cross Mason Street. Now, looking at the width of that, I mean, you got a right turn lane on each, I mean, they're both identical eastbound and westbound. You have 2 through lanes, exclusive right turns, and exclusive left. Is it wide? Absolutely. Do we have wider intersections than this? We, Military Mason, for example, if you are on Mason Street crossing Military, that would actually be wider than this, because we have dual left turn lanes, and exclusive right turn lanes and bike lanes. So, yeah, the crossing distance does get longer. It requires, I'm just gonna give you my best guess right now, it's gonna be probably about 30+ seconds minimum for the flashing don't walk time, given how we normally program the signals. So it certainly would have an impact on the signal timings. Not necessarily say it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm just saying that if you have the crossing, you'd have to make the accommodation as well. But I think you hit a good point, Chuck, in that I think only part of the process here is going to be able to get the installation along the corridor, the segment. The challenging part could actually be this intersection, to be able to work with the multiple entities involved. Obviously the county, which we've already discussed, the city, and this being a connecting highway, we'd like to get DOT involved. And this is one of those intersections we've studied from time to time. We've had traffic impact studies done, and it's one of those intersections that, to be quite frank, I think to do it right would be to completely reconstruct it. Any sort of a retrofit or Band-Aid at this point is exactly that. I don't think it really takes care of the true problems that are out there right now. I think the biggest and most obvious right now is the frontage road access. Like I said, we've conducted safety studies in the past, and this is where we have our predominant concern. I mean, the intersection itself doesn't have its share of crash history, but you combine that with the frontage roads that extend, and they're basically full access. That's really where the issues reside within this. It's really 3 intersections into one.
No, I just bring it up because it might not be as simple as just putting a path on one side of Packerland to the north, because you get that wide, you need to have a refuge in the middle of about 10 feet to break that ped crossing into 2 movements. And I think at Mason Street, there is a divider between, or Mason and Military, between the left turns and the through lanes.
There is a median, but our policy has always been to, if we cannot accommodate with a button in the median, that we obligate ourselves to make the full crossing. We design the timings as such, and we don't want to strand pedestrians in the middle, and especially if they don't have a button. I mean, we just think that's not a safe practice. So, in a case like this, if we would do a retrofit, it would be a full crossing.
I just had one quick point, and then Mike mentioned some things too, but even on this intersection here I know it might be a little bit of work on that, but could you conceivably go left on the frontage road and get down to, what is the cross street there?
Country Club.
Country Club, and then come up that way. It would still be a continuation of the bike lane, but you would just go down. I know it's a little out of the way, but it would avoid that intersection. I know that's a little bit of a jaunt, but that might be a possibility.
We do have the crossing here, and I do remember actually installing this. I moved the Alder and I had worked on that a couple of years ago. I think the thing that we need to realize here, Mark, is that given we have a lot of origins and destinations on both sides, when I say both sides, north and south of Mason Street, I think you need to build your facilities where the people are going to cross and where they're going to go and so forth. And you have restaurants, you have workout facilities, gas stations, convenience centers, and of course we have Southwest High School to the south.
You have, you're driving on the right-hand side, and everything's to the south, so you got an extra lane there. So to me, it seems like you would have, it wouldn't be the safest thing, but you'd have a little bit of safety with the fact that you have the median kind of shielding you, if you will. That would be one advantage, I think. So. That's just a thought, so.
All right.
I don't know.
Why don't we open it up to the gentleman that came? 1 second, we'll have you come up to the microphone, but let's motion to suspend. Okay. Motion made, second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you for coming. Just your name and address, and speaking the microphone there, please.
Hi, my name is Mike Renish, and I'm at 121 Garden Gate Court. And thank you for having me here. I think what's important is to consider, safety and getting from this intersection here where the sidewalk ends all the way up to Howard, whether I'm riding a bike or walking. I think what's important is to be able to traverse that corridor, and if I've got to, and Mark brought up the point I was going to take. This frontage road is actually on the north side here. That's a dead end, so it's very quiet, and that could really be utilized in many aspects to get a long way towards the safer intersection, possibly. NWTC, I think they would be also for, they own that land, they would also be for maybe even granting. I would be for a multi-purpose pathway. What concerns me, because I live at Garden Gate Court, which is up Packerland, just past the post office, so I'm driving on Packerland all the time, and really what got my attention was I'm going to call her a Grandma Mung lady. She's been on Packerland several times, elderly woman, and the traffic is moving 40 miles an hour, right? And all of a sudden you see this, the traffic slow down. You're wondering what's going on, and here's this Hmong lady in the road walking with her back to the oncoming traffic, and all the traffic is slowing down and moving around her, and it's happened more than once. So that's when I basically Mark is my friend, and he put me in touch with Tom. That's what really got me very concerned. It's a safety issue. There's really no place to traverse it. And there's all sorts of employers here, all the cutters here on Packerland and on Larson. And so I've seen on Larson Road too, I don't know if they're paraplegic or quadriplegic trying to traverse that. That's a whole separate issue. But yeah, so that's all I really have to say. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thanks.
I'll make a motion to return to normal business.
Motion been made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Back to normal business. Dave, what'd you think? Heard from you yet?
I really don't have much to add at this point in time, other than I do support that if there is consideration by the commission that this would be referred to staff for study, because I think there's a lot to look at. I mean, and there's a lot of different coordination efforts that would have to take place in order for this to be a reality. But as we know, if let's just say at minimum that sidewalks would be part of a recommendation, that would have to be something that is conducted through a study, brought back forward here, and then if that recommendation is approved, then it goes to improvement service for ordering it. If it's going to be multi-use path, a very similar process would have to happen, as in there would need to be some dedicated funds to fund the project, or at least get it on the schedule to be looked at for funding. Again, we've got multiple agencies involved. I heard Village of Howard, for example. They have a small connection there between those roundabouts and Indian Hill Drive, which is where the corporate limits are. So that would definitely have to take place. Just trying to see if there's anything else I really need to add. There is actually quite a bit of right-of-way. I found it's got 100 feet of right-of-way throughout this segment. It varies throughout the project. You know, I get some of the intersections, but for the most part, it's 100 feet. With a 52-foot wide roadway right now, which is really the two through lanes in each direction, and any sort of turn lanes and mediums within that. There's actually a two-way left turn lane too, as part of that northern end of the project to accommodate the driveway turns, which is a good feature as well. And we already talked about the county's project. They're gonna be wrapping that up here probably in November. So it's a pretty quick project, but, you know, given the nature of that project, I would just presume that the county's not really looking at any sort of a full reconstruct or any sort of significant capacity additions within the near future. But again, that's something that we would have to ask them. That's really about it, other than, I know you and I, Alderman, we had talked about the multi-use path. It was made mention about Howard has that segment. As FYI, to the south, when I say south, just south of the city limits, actually at View Lane and Ashwaubenon, that's just north of 172, crosses 172. There actually is a multi-use path on Packer-Land as well on the west side. So it crosses 172, goes past, like where the McDonald's and so forth is down there and extends to the south. So there actually is a multi-use path further south of here. It does become sidewalk on both sides of Packer-Land, which, if it's residential, bikes can legally occupy a sidewalk. We don't necessarily recommend that, just given it's a very narrow path, and rarely see compliance with sharing the sidewalk between bicyclists and pedestrians, and plus we don't think the profile is real accommodating for bicyclists, but there's at least some sort of safe haven legally for them that would actually connect up to the request limits that Alderman Slavic presents. So with that, it kind of sounds like the commission is moving towards referring this to staff to study, and staff certainly supports that as well.
Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that we refer this to staff to study, to see if we can see what we can get in that area.
Okay, motion been made, second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion. Okay, gentlemen? Thank you.
Thank you.
6, consideration with possible action on the request by the traffic engineer to modify the parking and traffic regulations affected by the University Avenue Center developments as follows.
See,
You want to take them one at a time, Dave, or can we group some
they,
together? Or?
I guess what I'll do though is kind of just give a general overview of why there's so many of them here and what they are, and I guess just open it up then to any questions. But, as I'm sure pretty much everyone here understands, there is a large development on the east side it's called University Avenue Center, just in general, just because there's multiple developers there, but the predominant anchor over there is Festival Foods, brand new standalone building. That is, there's going to be a quick trip across the street on what's going to be Clement Extended, and then a strip mall outlet. So these are some significant changes to the area, basically reconfiguring that entire space. And in order to do that, there's been months and months of preparation, consultation, traffic studies, et cetera, when it comes down to this development that I've been very closely involved with, and continue to do so as this project is under construction, and there's a fast tracking to a early December opening for the store. So with that said, there's going to be a number of changes required in traffic and parking regulations to accommodate the new street pattern and to accommodate the new developments. So really, that's the list of all of these. I don't think that there's a need to go through each individual one, unless if anyone has any questions on them, I certainly can present them. But this is more or less just standard procedure of coming forward For example, with the first one, removing the three-way stop at Fred at University, we're removing it because it doesn't exist anymore. You know, that kind of thing. So it's more cleaning house, basically accommodating everything that was agreed upon in the traffic impact analysis. Yeah, for example, a couple of new items in here, you'll see in K and L. Those are new traffic control signals, so the actual development, and actually maybe it might be better, I can just bring up, I got the infrastructure plan handy, and there's a couple of pages in here I thought that reflected quite well. I think this page 15, I think, shows the development pretty much how it will be when it's completed. So north is up on the sheet here. So this is existing Sturgeon Bay Road, and anything you kind of see in the darker line that indicates where there's going to be construction activity, or there, at this point I can say there has been construction activity. So with Sturgeon Bay Road, in essence, the roadway is being expanded to the south, and when I say expanded, it really was to accommodate turning movements into the development and extension of right turn lanes and other turn bays as well, and the creation of turn bays. This intersection here, this is what's going to be called Clement Street. I call it Clement Street Extended right now because it's not there, but there is an existing Clement Street that goes into the neighborhood. This just happens to maintain that same name for driver expectancy and consistency purposes. So this will actually be a signalized intersection. Again, with the traffic impact analysis, I was closely involved in that, and the traffic consultant did go forward and make the recommendations. We reviewed them and agreed with the recommendations as part of that study. So a signal will be going in at this location, and then in this insert or subset here, you'll see this is actually the intersection of what will be called Riviera Lane, which is really, this is University right now. This is where that kind of that yield condition was, I guess you'd say, going and connecting into University Avenue. So this is another signalized intersection to the development. You can see some changes here in the neighborhood. These streets, Ruth and Fred Street, well, this is that Fred Street. This used to actually extend out to University, so this is being vacated, or already has been vacated, and this is where the Quick Trip development will be placed. I guess probably another, items G, H, I, and J, if you have questions on that, why we're removing speed limit zones for such a long segment, that's just because we're removing a long segment and replacing it with the modified section of that. So that's just how we have to do it. You know, if it's a long segment that's posted 30, but we only need to change a little part of it, you remove the whole thing and then you reestablish it as just a smaller segment or a modified segment. So if there's questions that come up with GHIJ, that's really all that is. We're just redefining the limits with some of the street name changes. So that's really about it. Pretty straightforward stuff.
Alderman Yannick, did you have anything you wanted to comment there?
Well, just, I think that the things that Dave has proposed are pretty reasonable here. The comments I get from citizens are a couple. They hope that the lights will be timed, with an extra signal in there by the entrance. I hope that the lights will be timed appropriately to not delay traffic and traffic backups. And I'm sure that's something you have to deal with when it gets done.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, as part of that project, we got newer controllers that are being put in place, and ultimately our plan is to fiber connect all of them so we have real-time data connection. But in the interim, what we're going to do, we will do a time-based coordination pattern so that it minimizes the amount of stops between signals. I think that's probably what those concerns were.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's pretty standard for us to do. I mean, they're going to hand these signals over, obviously, to us, and that's actually part of my day-to-day job is to oversee the traffic signal timings on our streets. So I personally will actually come up with a timing plan and have it implemented.
Yeah, that was one concern. The other one that I hear from residents is I still hear from people on Peters Street that are concerned about cut-through traffic going on there. And that's something we're going to have to work on that when we see how much cut-through traffic exists there. with the reconfiguration.
Yep, and just to add to that as well, there are some speed humps that are actually going to be added to Peters Street. That is actually part of the infrastructure plan. That was something that we agreed upon in the traffic impact analysis due to those concerns that were
Do you know when
raised.
those are going in?
I would presume that once they are done with their project in early December, that they would be in by then.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve number 6 and all the underneath number 6.
Very good.
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And just as I'll add to that as well, that normally when we do regulatory type items, we put them on a 90-day trial because we're trying something new out that, we're changing from, say, like a yield condition to a stop condition. Seeing how these are drastic changes that you really can't revert back to, there's really no need to go on a 90-day trial, you just implement them. So just kind of making you aware of that these should get moved right away as part of the motion, so, you won't see them on a 90-day trial list, they'll just go straight to council on the commission report.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Termination of trial periods. You want to do your
Sure.
speed reading or
Yep,
Reader's Digest condensed
right,
version?
number 7 was to address the parking issues of crossing the street over at Sitka over by McCullough Park. Those seem to be successful. Items 8 through, looks like, the rest of them, 15, are all the parking zone changes relative to Franklin, or not Franklin, Notre Dame Academy. And there are changes to the bus loading zone and to modify some of the limits of the 2-hour zone on the north end. So I have actually personally made the observations of the changes. And it's definitely improved because we used to have buses coming in, buses pulling out. It was always really tight and congested at the intersection with Mason Street. Now everything is all school side, so there's no kids crossing and everything. It seems to have worked out really well for them. So I will make a recommendation to the commission for items 7 through 15 to be moved forward and adopted by ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other things, or if not, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yep, we're looking at Monday, November 14th. I think that actually may be the second Tuesday in the month, but just looking at the schedule that I had prepared, and I believe I may have shared it with you at the beginning of the year. I think that was done on purpose because of the holiday season and that being the week of Thanksgiving. We decided to move it up. I don't know, Chuck, usually you, I think, have,
I think it's on my calendar for the 14th, so.
okay.
I do too.
All right, yeah, so I must have shared that in the beginning of the year. I usually try to do that, but now the years are starting to blend, so just forget for me.
Okay, for the rest, for that
Yep.
Tuesday the 14th then?
Yep.
Oh, Monday.
Monday,
Oh, I'm
it's gotta be
sorry.
Monday.
Did you say Tuesday?
He did say Tuesday, and I'm like,
I said
no.
Tuesday?
You said Tuesday,
He
yeah.
did,
Oh,
that's
oh,
joint
that's what-
finance, so.
I think that was
can't
Chuck
be.
that said that. He's good at throwing his
All right.
voice.
Yeah, I got it in
Play
here.
the tape back.
Play the tape back.
Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
We have
Okay.
video.
Second.
So we're good for Monday the 14th, second?
Yep.
Okay. Motion to adjourn been made,
Yep.
Seconded.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
I will have to miss that meeting.
Pardon me?
I have to miss that meeting, I have a class.
Okay, well, that's fine. Anybody else know